Hey everybody, and welcome to a little exploring and taking a look at a classic Black Ops 2 map where I wanted to take a look at sort of the hidden details and the story of the map. So let's hop in and see what we're looking at here. So the map we're going to be looking at today is COVE. It's a DLC map from Black Ops 2, and it's a circular island map, but I wanted to look at sort of the smaller details on the map, sort of the hidden story, and what's really going on here, because it's kind of interesting, and it actually links up to another map in Black Ops 2.
Agents, you are cleared for contact.
So, here we are on COVE in Black Ops 2. Now, there's actually 3 separate stories going on this map all at once. All of them converge at one point, and it actually leads into another map within Black Ops 2. So, let's start off with the first story on this map and sort of set up the background of the island itself. So, the island of COVE is a circular, small-sized map, and it's an island out in the middle of what I would assume is the Pacific Ocean, and I'll give some evidence for that in a bit. So, the first detail that we notice when we spawn on this side of the map is that there is a small island over there with some shark-infested waters, and there is a wrecked shipping vessel right here. You can tell it's a shipping vessel from the those beams that hold up the net to catch fish. So here's what happened at the beginning. This ship was sailing out to sea in the Pacific Ocean, catching fish. It came a little too close to the island out here and forcefully ran aground. Now, of course, it wouldn't be that bad because the island is right here, but because of the shark-infested waters, many of the crew who were attempting to get to shore on the crashed ship didn't survive, until there was only possibly 1 or 2 survivors remaining. What survivors were left try to salvage as much bait and supplies and food from the ship as they possibly could before the sharks would get to them. So, the survivors started to camp out on the island, and unfortunately they didn't have any sort of communication whatsoever. I hate coconuts. Now, we're going to get to the coconuts in just a little bit, and as you can see, from all the scratch marks all over the walls right here, which is the majority of places that the survivors lived at, which would probably be on this ridge right here, because it'd be safe from any rain or anything like that. As you can see, whoever was on this island was surviving for a very, very long time. And judging from these overturned rocks right here, and these sort of wooden poles sticking up and out of the ground, and most evidently, this little X is sad face right here, it looks like whoever was left on the island sadly died or succumbed to the elements. And as you can see right here, it looks like somebody might have been buried here until there was only 1 survivor remaining. So, this single survivor who was left from this shipwreck, they needed to get off the island, but they had no way of communicating. And as you can see here, and from that writing on the wall, they hate coconuts. And the coconuts eventually would be used on this side of the island, which was the most clear and open area, to write this. H-E-L-P. Sort of a sign to try to get some attention from any passerby planes or maybe some ships. Anybody that could see this message and try and come and save the survivor. So, the survivor stuck on this island. He has survived nothing off but coconuts and possibly some crab. They decided that they needed to do something to get off the island. So, they started to salvage what they could from the ship and what they could from their nets and anything like that. And then over here is where they created this raft. And they're going to try to get this raft out of the rocky area and try to start sailing out into sea and possibly escape this hellish nightmare. But as fate would have it, fortunately or unfortunately, they would eventually get some visitors on the island, but it's not the visitors that the survivor of this crashed ship probably would have wanted. So now, let's go over to the second story. These dinghies would look very familiar to anybody who watched the hidden story of hijacked video that I posted recently. And this is where the main conflict of the map comes in. So unbeknownst to whoever was in these dinghies and unbeknownst to the ship and anything like that, over here we have the main eye catcher of the map, which is this crashed plane right here. This is the whole crux of the map and where the story comes into play. So here is what I believe happened, because if we take a look at what this plane was carrying, it might give us an insight about why I believe it was shot down. I do not believe that this was an accident. I mean, obviously the skies aren't too cloudy or anything like that. It doesn't seem like there's any sort of bad weather here, so it's unlikely that the ship, or rather the plane, crashed due to maybe a fault in the mechanics or anything like that. I believe the plane was shot down deliberately. By who? We'll get to that in a minute. As we can see here, Cyber Drone Industries, Mumbai, India. Now, I believe that this plane was transporting not only important technology to the United States from India across the Pacific Ocean, but I believe they were also transporting possibly a person of interest or maybe some important documentation. And these drones and all this technology here was just being used as a cover to ship something possibly more important. As we go into the plane right here, we see that there was definitely some seats open where people were on the plane. So it wasn't just the pilots who were on the plane. And we know for a fact that it's not the people whose plane crashed that were surviving here for long periods of time, because the plane is still on fire. So obviously, whoever was making those markings and created that raft, it's definitely much longer than this plane crash. We can still see that it's smoking and everything, because this is a fresh crash right here. We see the glass smashed out from where the front of the plane crashed in here. And now is where we get to what I believe is the reason why this plane was not only crashed here, but shot down. These dinghies right here are the same dinghies that the supposed mercenaries were riding into the hijacked map. And I believe that from the angle that the plane crashed, I believe that these mercenaries that were on these little dinghies right here were on that island over there. They used a surface-to-air missile because they knew that this plane was coming here and it was carrying some precious cargo, possibly technology, or maybe some other important thing that they would want. And they shot the plane down because they knew that this island here was here. But unbeknownst to them, they did not know that there was any survivors here on the island. So the mercenaries from that island over there, they shoot down the plane crashes, and then they decided to start heading out, but then they realized the shark-infested waters, so they had to go around, making them take a little bit longer time. And their time that they took wasting trying to get to this island to recover what was ever crashed from this plane is where the other part of the story takes place. And this is where the big connection to another map in Black Ops 2 comes into play. The hijacked ship is just offshore. And as we can see here, one of the smaller boats that it was on the front of the ship on that map has been sent to the island here. And what I believe happened is either from orders from the United States government or possibly from some billionaire or some higher up person in society. They knew that the plane was shot down here and they sent a small team of hired guns or possibly even government operatives to come to the island and recover either any survivors or any important technology. Because as we can see here, there's a lot of things that are just strewn about and just left on the island. And if anything was important, they most definitely would have taken it back to the ship. So, while the mercenaries on that side of the ship were rushing to get to the island as fast as they could, the hijacked crew sent a small detachment here. They saw the plane crash, and then this is where all three stories converge into one. The survivor from the initial shipwreck saw the plane crash, and then he saw that the hijacked ship was just offshore, and they were sending a detachment to the island. So he most likely ran to them and started to try to get their attention because he's been stuck here for so long. And I believe that he was eventually taken back to the hijacked ship to safety, because they weren't expecting anybody to be on the island or to have any survivors from the plane crash, most likely. And it's unclear. I've scoured the island, and as we can see, there's no signs of a gunfight. It's mostly just the crashed plane and destroyed trees and evidence of the survivor from the shipwreck. There doesn't seem to be any evidence of a firefight here, which makes me believe that the mercenaries got to the island a little too late. Obviously, when we play the map in multiplayer, in Team Deathmatch or Domination, the two sides are Cordestia mercenaries and the United States operatives. So it's possible that we are actually acting out in multiplayer the convergence of both the hijacked crew and the Cordestia mercenaries that shot down the plane. But I believe what's most likely, and this is the connection that brings it all back to hijacked, I believe the mercenaries shot down the plane. They were attempting to get to the island, but they were diverted by the shark-infested waters, so they took a little bit too much time to get here. The hijacked ship was just offshore. They sent a detachment here to retrieve any important documentation or any important technology that they needed to get off of the island. They recovered it, they got back in their small boat, and they returned to the hijacked ship. The mercenaries realized that they were a little bit too late and that their prize that they had worked so hard to shoot down and recover from the island was taken. And that is why, on the map Hijacked, we see these exact same little dinghies on the back of the ship, because after the hijacked ship took off and left the island behind, most likely with the ship's survivor in tow, it's very clear that the mercenaries realized they got here too late. As you can see, one boat right here is on land, and the other two are sort of floating in the water, meaning that they could have easily backed out and followed after the hijacked ship quickly enough. So while one team of mercenaries stayed on the island to secure anything that might have been left by the hijacked crew, those two boats here quickly sped off around the island, around the rocks, and followed after the hijacked ship. And those are the two boats that you see in the back of the hijacked vessel, and that leads into the map Hijacked. So while this map Cove is actually a DLC map, in my opinion, from the evidence presented and all of the stuff strewn about the island, it's very clear that this map is actually a prequel to the story of the map on Hijacked. And that, my friends, is what I believe is the most likely scenario and story of the map Cove. So, if you enjoyed this little breakdown, a little exploring of this very interesting and fun little map, be sure to let me know, and also give me suggestions for other maps, not only in Black Ops 2, but other Call of Duty games that have little details like this, so we can try to explore and find out what's really going on and what's happening on these classic Call of Duty